like typical of like how rotten journalism is today. And they take something that should be very important and they completely wreck it. And the article is called "Addicted to Posting Selfies, Then You're Probably Selfish and May Even Be a Psychopath," claims study. Researchers from Ohio State University said men. Now this is interesting. They said men. They didn't say women. This is completely keep the idea alive that only males are psychopaths. Researchers from Ohio State University said men who share lots of selfies are displaying psychopathic traits such as lack of empathy. Well, you see, that's bollocks, because psychopaths don't have a lack of empathy. Psychopaths have empathy. All empathy is the ability to understand social intelligence. It's caused by mirror neurons. Mirror neurons fire in sync, and it's just a way of having, for instance, SS troops murdering Jewish women and children in the Ukraine. They had empathy. They had empathy for the SS division who were doing it. You understand? That all empathy is, it's a social intelligence. What they don't mention here is what we really need to talk about, and that's compassion. Men who Photoshop their pictures before sharing them show signs of narcissism and self-objectification, the study found. This should be funny. Researchers revealed that objectification may be a bigger problem for men than previously. That's what I'll go with the men, okay? Whether it's a pop star or a friend, you're unlikely to bat an eyelid if they snap or post a picture of themselves online. But people, that's because it's normal. The people who share lots of selfies are displaying psychopathic traits, according to studies. Now, these same Muppets would they have said that Jimmy Savile demonstrated psychopathic traits? Oh no. People who are just like taking photographs of themselves, old-fashioned harmless vanity, well, they're the new psychopaths, according to these Muppets. It found that men who regularly post selfies on sites such as Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram are more likely to be narcissistic, impulsive, and display other characteristics, such as a lack of empathy. This is what you got your science degree for, okay? Right, this is what you got it for. So, I'm a scientist, and we have made a study, and we've discovered that rain is wet. And we've also discovered that water probably falls from the clouds to the ground because of gravity. This is like the level of this bullshit. Oh, there's the FCC on my ass again. Oh, double. Okay. Researchers have also revealed that self-objectification may be a bigger problem for men than previously thought, with many taking time and effort to improve their selfies before posting them online. So what? So what? Psychologists from Ohio State University found that men who post selfies regularly scored higher than average levels of antisocial traits. Well, they don't like going to pubs or something? This is amazing, right? Okay, so a peacock, you know what a peacock, the male peacock shows all his feathers and he gets all the female peacocks horny, right? He's now a psychopath, according to these guys, right? You know those monkeys in the zoo that have the big red arses? That big red arse is actually used to attract females. So the monkeys in the zoo with the big red arses, they're psychopaths. For example, men who doctor their images to improve their appearance show signs of narcissism and self-objectification, said assistant professor of communication Jesse Fox. Could you imagine what he must look like? Narcissism is most commonly associated with vanity, but as a pathological flaw relates to a feeling of being more intelligent, attractive, and better than others, according to a study published by the journal. You see, these are all like, they're all like really geeky, unattractive people who work in a science lab, and they go home at night and they see like good-looking or attractive people taking selfies of themselves, which is none of their business, right? And then they decide, well, I'm not beautiful, I'm not attractive like he or she is, so therefore we're going to call them psychopaths. Narcissism is most commonly, men who put their pictures online as soon as they can are more likely to show signs of psychopathy. Oh my God. Which is defined as having a lack of empathy as regards to others. And no, it's not. Oh man, where these morons come from? This is what universities are turning out now. Guys who do that and take selfies are harming no one. The same for women. It's harmless. It's all, murdering someone is evil, right? Going in and beating up an old lady and taking her money is evil, right? That's psychotic. But according to these muppets at this university, unless they take a selfie of themselves after they've beaten up the old lady, they're not psychopaths. Professor Fox explains, psychopathy is characteristic by impulsivity. No, it's not. Not necessarily. Psychopaths plan. They manipulate. They think things over. Psychopaths are not highly impulsive. They can be impulsive in certain situations like sexuality or something like that, but not. They're characterized by deviousness, by planning, by observing. This Professor Fox is an absolute dope. They are going to snap the shops and put them online. Oh, so you hear that, folks? If you take a photograph of yourself on your phone and say, oh, look nice there, and you stick them online, oh, well, that means you're a psychopath, according to this Professor Fox. They want to see themselves. They don't want to spend time editing. There are days I pray that there's a meteorite or an asteroid heading towards this dump. I really do. If this is what passes for high education, science, and intellect. To come to their conclusions, the researchers surveyed 800 men. 800 men, they'd be tipped, and I bet you every single one of them was a college student, right? And what are guys in college like? They're looking to get laid. They're often working out. They're often, they're looking to get chicks. They're not psychopaths. This is what young guys do. As well as giving them psychological questionnaires to establish their personality traits. No, the only way you can tell someone is psychopathic is by an fMRI brain scan. That's the only way you can tell for sure. It's becoming like Alcoholics Anonymous. Alcoholics Anonymous, if you read their website, if you have a drink at Christmas time, a glass of shandy or a glass of sherry at your Christmas dinner, you're an alcoholic. It's becoming like that now with the psychopath stuff. The survey asked them, and this I think it's an agenda, they're trying to water down the psychopath issue more and more and more, so eventually everyone thinks they're a psychopath to some degree. The survey asked them how often they post pictures on sites like Instagram and Twitter, and whether they Photoshop their selfies first. Professor Fox said, it's like something from The Simpsons, this guy. It's not surprising that men who post a lot of selfies and spend time editing them are more narcissistic. But there's nothing wrong with narcissistic. Once it's not pathological and you're using it to hurt another person, like walking, I'm better looking than you because you're ugly, then it's pathological. Otherwise, it's harmless. These people are probably so unattractive that an attractive woman or an attractive man is narcissistic for no other reason than they're attractive. The more interesting findings is that they also score higher on other antisocial personality traits. Psychopathy are more prone to self-objectification. But he doesn't even explain that what it is. Most people don't think that men even do that sort of thing, but they definitely do. Of course they do. Men are peacocks. Young guys in college walking around with a boner trying to get laid will do these kinds of things. Men are peacocks. This is normal. Young guys are My God, when I think about me when I was like in my early 20s, standing on stage with a guitar in my hand and giving it up large to the girls in the front row, Jesus, that practically makes me Jack the Ripper, according to these guys. It was a bit of fun, it was a bit of a laugh, and then I grew out of it. Most people don't think that men even do that sort of thing, but they definitely do. You see, this is Mr. Fox, Professor Fox, and the other cases at this university who are judging the world by what they're not. You understand what I'm saying? Like, this is like sectarianism almost. Like, we and the other buck-toothed, acneed nerds who couldn't get people to believe that just being into science made you sexy, we're not like that. So that means the people who are like that, there's something wrong with them. They're all psychopaths. She warned that such behavior can lead to further problems. Like what? Getting girls? We know that or getting fellas in the girl's case, we know that self-objectification leads to a lot of terrible things, like depression and eating disorders in women. So they just went from men to women here, okay? Self-objectification is normal at an early age. When people have babies or they fall in love and they get married, that's less important to them. But it's perfectly normal when they're young. This guy believes it causes depression and eating disorders in women. That's actually quite sexist what he said, you think about it. There's nothing wrong with a girl thinking she's hot stuff, and there's nothing wrong with a guy thinking the same. It's only when they're not that, and they're putting down others, that there's something wrong. With the growing use of social networks, everyone is more concerned about the appearance. So, what's wrong with that? Do you go to a wedding in overalls? This means that self-objectification may become a bigger problem for men as well as for women. And then they have a picture of Kim Kardashian. She looks like she should be... When I look at her, she looks like she should be on O'Connell Bridge with a drugged baby in her arm, wearing a shawl and looking for money. Well, that's racist, sorry. Selfies may be a sign of illness. 2/3 of patients with body image disorders obsessively take photographs of themselves. But that's because they have body disorders, image problems, okay? But that's not the problem with selfies. Experts link selfies Experts linked selfies with mental illness. Oh God! In April last year, suggested. There we go. Good old Daily Mail and its typos. That people regularly searching for the perfect angle from which to portray themselves could, in some cases, be ill. So, okay, I got my phone here, right? And I'm taking a picture, and I'm going, oh, I've got a double chin, okay? But I've got really nice eyes. So what I'll do is I'll focus on the eyes, okay? That means you're mentally ill, okay? Now, if I took a photograph of my bollocks and put them online, that would make me mentally ill. But getting the right angle, look, there are loads of attractive people on my Facebook page, and they all do this, okay? And they all move the camera around a certain angle to take it. There's nothing wrong with that. No one wants to see a bad picture of themselves. The problem is Professor Cox and the rest of these guys on his survey have never seen a good picture of themselves. I could see, what's his name, Shortley Smedlington of the socialist, anti-misogynist, anti-Nazi. They're going, I fully agree with the findings of this research, because it's become apparent to me that these people who are not in the demo last week were too busy being pathologically obsessed with their attractiveness, while I was trying to save working class people from themselves. Dr. David Veal, a consultant psychiatrist, here we go, at the South London and Maudsley NHS Trust and the Priory Hospital. Okay, the Priory, that's it. For those who don't know outside this part of the world, the Priory is where celebrity drug addicts and alcoholics go, okay? Let me explain to you, Dr. David Veal, okay? Not all of us are the singer from the Libertines. We're normal people. Or what's her name that was married to Brian McFadden, the one who does the Iceland ads? So, that never made any sense to me. Man, Brian McFadden is in a boy band, right? And he marries this one that was thrown out of a girl band that looks like she's no personality or anything. I can't remember her name. Kerry Katona, that's right. And she does ads for a supermarket. It's a typical boy band thing, or the football player thing. And marry the first person you meet, okay? So, Kerry Katona, this guy, Dr. David Veal at the Priory, thinks that everyone is like Kerry Katona or Pete Doherty. Told the Sunday Mirror, here we go, the font of all knowledge. 2 out of 3 of all patients who come in to see me with body dysmorphic disorders. You can't hear me right now, but I'm slapping my head. Let me repeat this. Body dysmorphic disorders. Oh, God. Since the rise of camera phones, have a compulsion to repeatedly take and post selfies on social media sites. He told the Mail Online, Taking selfies is not an addiction. It's a symptom of body dysmorphic disorder that involves checking one's appearance. So to hear that all, those of you who've ever taken a selfie or more than one selfie for your Facebook page, according to this doctor, you've got a disorder called body dysmorphic disorder, and you're sick, you need hospitalization, you need medication, expert guidance, so you don't do anything as evil as take photographs of yourself. Cognitive behavioral therapy is often used to help patients moderate their obsessive behavior relating to their appearance. So there you go. I'll start practicing cognitive behavioral therapy. Here's what you do, right? When you hold up a phone and you go to take a picture of yourself, you say to yourself, "Oh, I'm an ugly bastard. I don't have to take this picture." You're cured. Okay. In one extreme case of the disorder, a British teenager, Danny Bowman, tried to commit suicide because he was unhappy with the appearance in the selfies he took. That's Danny Bowman, okay? That kid, that teenager, is not typical of... See, they always take one case that's overblown and they say it's everybody, okay? He was so desperate to attract girls, well, that's what teenage boys do. He spent 10 hours a day taking more than 200 selfies trying to find the perfect image. But when you go to, like, look, when I was growing up, we used to go to, like, discos and dances at school, and the boys used to pull in their stomachs, and they used to, like, move a certain, like, try and look attractive to the girl. So when you walked over, like John Wayne, or no, like, what's his name, Tony Manero on Saturday Night Fever, you walked over there, you know, at an Irish disco in the late 1970s with your white suit, your bell-bottom trousers, your black polished boots, and your flaming curly red hair and freckles. When you walked over there, when you took what was the most horrifying walk of your life across that feckin' dance floor, and you walked over to Sharon Gorman, and you said, Sharon, do you want to dance? And she said, feck off, you ugly bastard. Okay? That's normal, okay? And then you walked back to the lads, and they'd say, what happened? And she says, oh, she's meeting me afterwards, lads. Whoa! That's what young people do, okay? Nowadays, the paradigms, I sound like Russell Brand, the paradigms, the narrative has changed. The narrative has changed. And nowadays, they take selfies, okay? Same thing. Have these guys ever been young people? In the article for Psychology Today, an absolute rag. That's an absolute total rag, that magazine. Dr. Pamela Rutledge, director of Media Psychology Research Center in Boston, Massachusetts, said, selfies frequently trigger perceptions of self-indulgence and attention-seeking dependency that raises the damned if you do, damned if you don't specter of either narcissism or low self-esteem. That's what passes for sanity today. That's what passes for an expert opinion today. You take a selfie of yourself and you send it to someone online on your Facebook page. You're either a psychopath or you have, what do they call it, body dysmorphic disorder. The world has gone mad. We're going to play the last song before I get into the final bit of the show, and this is Rush and Mystic Rhythms.
And we're back, and I'm back on Skype as well. I've just taken a selfie of myself, like Kira said, and I'll put it up on Facebook. We have not been defeated. We're back online, and I don't care what anyone says. We were taken down. The internet did not go out for any reason on its own. They wanted to try and kill the show, whatever. Screw them. It's not going to go that. It's not going to go that way. And that was fantastic of Paula calling me up and getting me on the phone, and I really appreciate that. It's just fantastic to have that kind of backup. And we're back for the final hour or so of the Velocity of Now with better quality sound, I hope. Can you hear me? WNBC. Did you ever see that film, Private Parts, the Howard Stern film? It's a brilliant scene in it where when he goes to work for WNBC, you have this guy who's the station manager, and he says, I'll break that bastard, no problem for you. To the manager to try and get him off the station, and it's a whole bit where the guy goes, Howard, you gotta say the call station letters properly. WNBC. WNBC. And it's just like, it sums up mass media perfectly. That's a great film if you haven't seen Howard Stern's Private Parts. It's a lot deeper and a lot more telling than you think it is. Okay, I'm back on, and what did we talk about tonight? We spoke about the Irish water thing and the situation in Ireland. We spoke about the madness of diagnosing people who take selfies of themselves as being, psychopathic and narcissistic, and these shrinks and these expert bodies of the DSM have absolutely nothing better to do with their lives. Now, it's funny that that happened, but today really is a very, very dark day, and there's no getting around that. What happened in Paris with the Charlie Hebdo murders in the building. Let's talk about this for a while, for a start. Okay. It doesn't matter if you believe it was a conspiracy or was a false flag, okay? And it doesn't matter if you believe it was Islamic fundamentalists who did this, like I currently do, going on the evidence at the moment. Freedom of speech died today. That's what happened. Freedom of expression. And there's no winners in a situation when freedom of speech or freedom of expression dies than the psychopaths in charge. They're the only ones who win, ever. Alex Jones, to his credit, said something. He posted, I don't know if it was him or someone on his website, posted something today saying that the PC brigade must start to own their own crap in all this by controlling free speech and putting limits on what people can say, what jokes they can say, making sure they don't offend anybody. I'm talking about like the Chorley Smedlingtons of the Socialist Alliance League of anti-misogynist and anti-racist, and we find any joke that's slightly homophobic or racist, they must be banned, especially if working class people tell them, because we don't like working class people having a good sense of humor, because working class people tend to be funny. Bernard Manning, we don't like him because Bernard Manning was funny. But Chorley Smedlington, I certainly approve of Stephen Fry. He's harmless. He's very, very funny because he doesn't offend anybody, because he's politically correct. And I remember back in the day, Benny Hill was being taken down, and Bernard Manning, by the likes of what was his name, Ben Elton, and the rest of that Oxbridge brigade, and that whole shower, who portrayed them as sexist, homophobic, racist, and they brought in their alternative comedy, quote unquote, unfunny. Translation: alternative comedy, unfunny. And I think there's something more to Benny Hill demise than just cultural Marxism. I think Benny Hill was taken out. I don't mean he was assassinated, but I think his heart was definitely broken. He had the number one show on in the world. Do you know that Benny Hill's show was the number one show in the world at the time? Comedy show. It was the number one program in British TV. It was produced by Thames Television in London. The show was simple and silly, but if you notice in a lot of those sketches, he made fun of authority figures, and a lot of them he made fun of BBC types. Remember, he wasn't on the BBC, And there's even sketches of him having a go at Jimmy Savile. And he was, what he did was, it was silly and kind of childish, but it was also kind of, I thought song parodies were always very clever. But you'll always see that he mocked. He was the ultimate jester, was Benny Hill. He mocked the establishment by making them, remember, like when they'd have and they'd have like the blonde girl in the miniskirt running. It was always, you remember, it was always a judge or a lawyer or a politician or someone like that who was chasing after the little girl. Do you not think he may have been blown the whistle? Now that we know it went on in the halls of British respectable establishment in those days. But anyway, so we had, apparently, from what I can tell, you see, just because false flags happen doesn't mean that every single attack is a false flag. As simple as that. And yes, Islamic extremists do exist. As hard as that is for the average tufa to accept, Islamic extremists and killers do exist. I have doubts about ISIS. I don't particularly believe that ISIS are real. I don't. That's just something not right there. I'm totally down with Naomi Wolf on that side. But this thing that happened today, I think that was what it was, as the mainstream media are reporting it. The magazine, the satirical magazine. See, satire is the greatest force on this earth. See, there's two forces on this earth that are totally awesome, and they're battling it out on the world stage. One is religious dogmatism or fanaticism of any kind, maybe political. The other is satire. And both are in an eternal conflict for the human soul. And fanatics and crazies and cult members don't understand satire, and they don't like it. And this Charlie Hebdo magazine, they were attacked, they were firebombed last year by Muslim extremists, and the cartoonist even had bodyguards a lot of the time, and they did the right thing. They didn't back down. You should never back down. Freedom of expression must always be allowed to remain. It doesn't matter who it offends. It cannot be stopped. Because if you take away the ability to take the piss out of someone else, then you might as well give up on the human race. Because right back to the beginning of time, our ancestors were having a laugh and taking the piss out of one another. The lads who are building Newgrange, I can guarantee you that if we were to go back then, the one thing we would understand culturally is when some of the lads and the women who are building Newgrange are having a laugh taking a piss out of someone that was there. Or their boss, or the druid, or the king, or whatever. They did that. And if you think that should be stopped, because I see no difference between the PC brigade and those pieces of crap who walked into the Charlie Hebdo offices today. I see no difference. You're just as bad. Shortly Smithson, the socialist, anti-sexist, anti-misogynist league, is just as wicked and evil as those guys. Don't tell me that it's not because he didn't kill anybody. They are. They're still doing the same thing. They're trying to murder the jester. And the jester is the only hope we have left, really. There's no other hope. As we enter the technocratic society, we've only got creativity and the jester left to give us a hope. You can sit there politically debating things, living in fear, showing fear porn. But the only way we can take somebody down is the Emperor's New Clothes. We all have to be that little kid in the Emperor's New Clothes who said, that douche isn't wearing anything. We all have to be like that. And that's what those people who were murdered today were doing. They were saying to these Islamic fanatics And remember, they went after every religion. You go and look, go Google the covers of that magazine, and you see that they take the piss out of Jews, Catholics, Protestants, Muslims, everybody. They weren't just taking the piss out of one group. Unfortunately, the Abrahamic religions, which have infected the West since they crossed the Bosphorus, have been killing our poets and artists and our jesters and our jokers from day one. The Christians and the Jews have learned how to behave themselves in recent centuries, but the Muslims, a sizable proportion of their population, hasn't. I know most Muslims are not extremists. I know vast majority of Muslims are not like that, but there's still a psychic problem, consciousness problem within the heart of the Islamic community that only people within Islam themselves can address. Well, they're not addressing it properly or at all. So we had, I just can't imagine the horror that must have been witnessed inside that office. And of course, the two groups, they jump into it. You have the mainstream Sheeple 1.0, who hates every Muslim that ever lived. And you have the alternative conspiracy Sheeple 2.0, who thinks that every single, it definitely, without any little proof or no proof at all, it's a conspiracy, an inside flag, inside job, false flag. I don't watch videos of people being murdered. Okay, I won't do that. I'm not into snuff. I don't get my jollies by watching a policeman being machine gunned on the pavement. It doesn't interest me. That kind of thing upsets me. But a lot of the Infinite Love Brigade and the empath types seem to have an addiction to watching the snuff, so they can research. So they watch some guy being shot. The main bone of contention is that if he was shot that close to an AK-47, his head would explode. True, I agree. The head would have shattered into 1,000 pieces. There would have been no head left. But what if he missed? Have you even thought about that one? They didn't even take aim properly. I fired an AK-47 at a firing range in America, and I can tell you the gun is notoriously difficult to hit a target with. The AK-47 is a very simple and simplistic design of semi-automatic. There's basically nothing inside it. That's why it's so popular. It doesn't break. There's literally a magazine with a latch. When you pull the trigger, the round is deposited in front of a spring. The spring pushes it forward. You fire the gun. The spring recoils. A very simple mechanism, and the bullet shoots through a short barrel. If you put it on automatic, the thing literally flies around in your hand. You can't hold it straight. That's why that's why it's not, as a singular assault weapon, it's not that good. The reason why the AK-47 has had millions of them have been used, hundreds of millions, is because it's incredibly reliable. It's so simple, nothing breaks. It's easy to repair, and it takes rounds of ammunition that are easily procured. That's all. But on the downside, because it's a functional, utilitarian assault rifle, it has flaws, and the flaw being it's not very accurate. You have to take careful aim. The bullets, as soon as they leave it's not like see, people think that guns, like in the cowboy films, you can shoot a gun. You see the guy in like the High Chaparral or the old cowboy shows or John Wayne movies. There's a guy at the top of a ravine and a guy down below with a Smith & Wesson revolver, and he shoots the guy from about 200 yards and hits him perfectly. That's impossible in real life, because after this certain distance, the bullet bears off. And that's what happens with the AK-47. It's a notoriously difficult weapon to take aim with because of two things: the recoil and the short barrel. The reason why the guy's head didn't explode is because the terrorist, the Muslim guy who shot at him, missed. It's as simple as that. He missed him. That's it. That's what I can see. I can see the guy, that's what happened. He missed. He'd already killed the man because the man was dying from already been previously being hit. So the coup de grace, the shot to the head, didn't matter. And so while everyone's watching these videos of this man in his last seconds of his life and robbing him of his dignity by trying to figure out if it was an inside job, never stop to once think that the guy, the terrorist, missed him. And that's what I believe happened. These Islamic fanatics exist. In Islam, to draw the Prophet is considered the most horrific mortal sin of all. To draw the Prophet in a sexual, which they did on the magazine after they were firebombed, they showed a picture of him French kissing a rabbi. Muhammad was French kissing a guy, I think it was a rabbi or something. Is so, anyone who's ever dealt with a cult like I have, that these people do not like being told what they really are. They believe themselves to be special. They believe themselves to be infallible. And they wrap themselves in a code of fanaticism. And there's no room, because literally their brains have been wired to only believe the dogma. They're literally the neural pathways and their cognition is completely and 100% wired, hardwired into only believing, because that's what happens to the human brain. If you read a book, a religious book, or you're a flagellant, or you're sitting there going, hey, whatever the religion is, all the time, your brain gets wired. Just like if you're working in a factory and you're doing a complex assembly job. I've worked in factories doing complex assembly job. After a few days or a week or a month, you find that in your head you can be having fantasies about, being in Baywatch instead of Hasselhoff, and you can assemble these products without even thinking about it. It just happens because what's happened is your neural pathways have wired themselves, permanently wired themselves, as well as it's been shown now that the DNA in your brain will also align itself towards the task. Human beings have a very easy to control cerebral partition, cognition. And so the same thing happens with religious fanaticism, whether in a cult waiting for the flying saucer gods to come, or in a cult like Catholicism where you have a flagellant whipping himself. The same thing. You cannot break your programming. And so when someone produces a piece of satire which directly confronts your programming, what happens is there is a flood of stress hormones like norepinephrine and adrenaline from the lower brain stem, and you want to destroy the messenger because you cannot comprehend, because literally your neuro and chemical minds, your neuro and chemical partitions in your brain have been so wired that a chemical release that causes you to go crazy. If this turns out, okay, let's take out the most outlandish conspiracy theory. The artists inside the magazine and the editors were told that they're probably going to be murdered. And then the French police says, what we'll do is we will construe and invent a false flag attack where you'll be shipped out of the magazine, given a new identity and your family's a new name, but you can still continue to create the ads from afar using your new identity, and will pretend you were murdered. And this way we can also deal with the radical Islamists within inside France at the same time. That would be the most outlandish conspiracy theory. On the other hand, you could have things in between where it could justify a French military action in Chad. And on the other hand, it's the real thing, which currently that's what I believe it is. Okay? All those scenarios all lead to the same appalling place, that freedom of speech is dead. And there's no good in it. So, as it stands, I believe it is an Islamic terrorist attack until other evidence comes forward, and I'll leave it at that. And I'm willing to change my opinion, but not based on, Nigel down in Guildford smoking 15 spliffs and watching YouTube videos of the shot of the policeman on the ground 15 times an hour. I'm not going to go with that. Sorry. And I'm not going to join conspiracy circle jerking just because we've had false flags in the past doesn't mean make them all false flag. I stay independent and I do my own thing and I take things one step at a time. I'm not interested in being a hero to anyone except my own conscience. And I think that's not a bad way to live for any of us. On another matter, there was a strange experience around all this. And I'm sure in weeks or months to come, people will be saying Sheridan is making this shit up. Up, the FCC again. Sorry, lads. He's making this stuff up. But yesterday morning, I woke up about 5 a.m. when the cats was going nuts and I fell back asleep again. And I had the most incredibly vivid dream. And I posted it when I woke up on Facebook, so the proof is there, even though I know you don't believe me. Or someone would say, Sheridan had foreknowledge because he's a Mossad agent. I fell asleep and I had the most vivid dream that I've had in a very long time of guys who looked like they were from the Middle East. They didn't have hoods on their face